What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto's lust unleashed Kurama's true power and turned him into a desire demon? If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. Naruto was sick of it. His horrible grades. Everyone making fun of him. Especially those dumbass villagers that would glare at him, and, should he do something they considered stupid, slap him. There was something about him that he just couldn't see. He swore he'd heard "fox demon" leave their mouths a couple of times, so he figured, in a moment of absolute brilliance, that there must be a demon taking the form of a fox hanging around him, and the villagers just didn't like the demon. Regardless of whether this was the case or not, he still was effectively being accused of a crime he didn't commit, and he planned to do something about it. And so, one night not long before the final exams for the academy came around once again, as Naruto sat on his bed, he called out to the thin air, "Hey, where are you?" There was no reply. Taking a deep breath, he held on to his patience and tried again. "Fox demon, I know you're there." There was a deep growl that rang in Naruto's head. "Who said I was a demon? All the villagers mention a fox demon whenever I'm around. I figured that a demon was hanging around me that I just couldn't see," Naruto replied, staring at the wall. "You've been making my life a living hell. What gives? I did not choose to be stuck inside of you like a caged animal. And I am certainly not a demon," the creature yelled, making Naruto cringe from the volume of the voice only he could hear. "You're inside of me?" Naruto asked. "Yes," the voice growled. "Since the moment of your birth, I've been stuck inside of you. I guess we're both trapped by something we can't control," Naruto muttered. "I may be trapped, but you don't have to be," the voice told him. "No, the Hokage won't let me leave the village until I'm a ninja, and even then, I have to go on a mission to leave," Naruto muttered sadly. "Not if you're a fox," the voice suggested. "What do you mean?" Naruto asked. "If you can master the ability to transform your body into that of a fox, you can easily live outside the village with few difficulties. And no one would be the wiser when they look at you." Naruto could almost hear the voice grin. "This isn't some trick, right? I mean, you're not a demon, but how can I trust you?" Naruto asked cautiously. "Would telling you my name suffice for now?" "I guess," Naruto said. "But I want a little more evidence later." The voice chuckled. "I'm not that much of a trickster. At least, not when I'm trying to gain someone's trust, though it is a rare occasion for me to try and do that. My name is Kurama, and I am the Kyuubi no Kitsune." "The one that destroyed the village 12 years ago?" Naruto asked fearfully. "The one and only," Kurama said. "In all reality, I was being controlled. I don't generally just destroy villages because I'm bored. Keep that in mind, Kit, and you might just get along with me." Naruto nodded. "Right," he muttered. "Why'd you call me Kit?" "Because you're young enough by my standards to be considered such," Kurama replied. "Now go to sleep, we'll get working on the transformation art tomorrow." Naruto grinned. "Alright, good night, Kurama." Promptly, he fell back on his bed, and was out like a light. The next day, after failing more assignments from the academy, Naruto returned home. Upon closing the door, he called out, "Hey, Kurama. Did you see that? They failed me on my worst subject, even though they know I can't make a clone. Half the grade's based on effort too, and I was clearly giving it my all, so what gives?" He fell onto his bed. "Sorry, Kit, not much you can do if they won't accept that you want to fit in," Kurama replied helplessly. Naruto rolled onto his side. "Yeah, I know." Perking up, he said, "Hey, let's get working on that transformation just you told me about." Kurama didn't reply. The next thing Naruto knew, he was standing ankle-deep in water, staring at a giant nine-tailed fox that was trapped behind a massive gate. "So that's what you look like, huh?" Naruto said, not even commenting on the change of scenery. "Yep," the fox nodded. "Now then." Kurama told him a simple set of steps. Concentrating, he attempted to transform. The results were horrible. He looked slightly like a fox, having a snout and fur, but the rest of him was completely human. Upon finding that just letting go of his concentration and releasing the chakra he had gathered didn't undo the transformation, he was quite frightened, and so he asked, "How'd I undo this?" All the while, flailing around in a comical fashion. "Relax, Kit," Kurama told him. "Do the same set of steps, and concentrate only on the form you wish to assume." Naruto managed to change back to his regular form. Looking up at the fox, he asked, If that just you can't be undone by regular means, why don't they teach it to everyone? Well, I'm the only one who knows how to perform it anymore. It also requires a lot more chakra, and very few have that amount while they're learning the basics, and of course, they have to make it fair. And by the time everyone has that much, they'll all be so good at a regular hedge that it'll be worthless to learn it. How can I use it though? Naruto asked. A small portion of my chakra, which is huge compared to the average person's, has blended with your normal reserves. You have an amazing amount just lying around, more than the first 3 Hokage put together. You could use the transformation at least 4 times in the same hour outside of your mind, and you'd be perfectly fine, Kurama explained. Oh, sweet, Naruto yelled. Hey, does it take the same amount of chakra to transform back? Because it's effectively a permanent transformation technique, yes, Kurama replied. Naruto nodded and continued to practice the technique, quickly learning, and soon enough, he had it down. He had been able to make it so that his fur somewhat resembled the suit that he regularly wore. He took on the appearance of a small, one-tailed fox, with most of his fur being a bright orange. It had a white stripe that started at his muzzle, and ran down to his stomach, as well as wrapped around his neck, similar to the collar of his suit. His stomach actually had the same seal that had always been present on his normal form tattooed on the fur, though it was something that Naruto himself didn't add, it just appeared there. His back paws, as well as his shoulders, were a gray color that was quite close to the blue of his sandals, without actually being blue. His eyes remained the same sea blue, however, other than that and his fur being the same color of his clothes, it was very difficult to tell that it was Naruto. Kurama smiled happily. Tomorrow, if you fail to pass your final exam, we can run away. I'll teach you everything that you need to know about surviving out there as we go. Naruto nodded. Then a thought occurred to him. It's going to get lonely out there. Kurama shook his head. Unless you get someone that actually likes you to accompany you, then you're going alone. Sorry Kit. Naruto nodded with determination. Don't worry, I'll get someone to come with me for sure. Kurama chuckled at the boy's enthusiasm as he left the fox alone. The next day, after arriving at the academy, Naruto strolled over to Sakura and whispered as he sat next to her, I'm going to run away if I fail the test again. Want to come? Sakura scoffed. Yeah right, like I do that, even if you were telling the truth. Naruto, distraught, hung his head as Kurama told him, sorry Kit. She doesn't have enough chakra to use the transformation anyway. I know. Doesn't mean I can't try, though, right? Naruto whispered back. Still, she's the only one I even remotely like besides Old Man Hokage and Iruka. I guess I'll just have to meet a nice female fox in the forest. The term is vixen, Kurama informed him. Anyway, you don't need her. She'd get in your way. She would? Naruto asked. Before Kurama could elaborate, Sakura bonked him on the head. What are you whispering about? Naruto looked up at her briefly before letting his head rest on the desk. Nothing important, he muttered. Sakura let out a huff and turned her attention back to Sasuke. That's why, Kit, Kurama said. She only cares about that emotionless prick. I noticed, Naruto replied. All the girls only care about him. I don't understand why. His whole clan was wiped off the face of the earth, and suddenly everyone cares about the only survivor. It makes sense in the beginning, but after a while you'd expect everyone to stop caring. He certainly has. Naruto glanced at said male, watching as he ignored the stares and occasional confession of love. Fucking lucky is what he is. He's got looks, skills, and the whole village's pity and unconditional love. The only thing that evens it out a little is that he lost his parents. Ah, stop talking like he's the best thing that's happened since sliced bread, Kurama growled. You have the Kyuubi no Kitsune on your side. That's better than looks and pity. Naruto chuckled. Yeah, you're amazing, Kurama. Sakura turned around to see who he was whispering to, and possibly bop him over the head again. To her surprise, there was no one around. Kurama? She asked. Naruto jumped in shocked. He hadn't been aware that Sakura had been listening, and now she's heard the fox's name. Oh, he's, an imaginary friend, he lied. You know, no one accepts me, so I've had to make up my own friends. Even if they aren't real. Sakura studied him for a second before rolling her eyes and turning away. Iruka then entered the classroom and began the written half of the exam. Naruto, who had taken the test a couple times, answered the majority of them with ease. When 75% of the paper was filled out, He gave up and put his head down to talk to Kurama as quietly as possible. Amazingly enough, Naruto wasn't caught whispering to himself. That, or Iruka took pity on the boy, and didn't rip up his test, as was the normal protocol if a student was caught talking. On to the final part, and Naruto had to make 3 clones in order to pass, which, admittedly, makes the written part a little worthless. Naruto concentrated, and failed. He looked at the failed, dead clone he had managed to conjure up. Snarling, he yelled, "Screw this." He used his recently learned transformation just you, and jumped out the window before the 2 instructors could get a good look at his form. Iruka sighed and requested the Anbu on standby, as they had expected Naruto to do something crazy, to go retrieve him while the exams were finished. Meanwhile, Naruto ran. He tripped over himself numerous times, but he ran. People were so surprised at his presence, or more accurately, a fox's presence, that either they ran away screaming or they froze up, leaving Naruto to weave around the mess. "Kit, we don't want anyone getting a good look at your fox form," Kurama told him. "Change back until we're at the forest." Naruto nodded and transformed back. Anyone that saw Naruto change immediately thought he was trying to mess with them, and some started to chase him. Thinking fast, Naruto jumped to the rooftops, and only the single Anbu was able to follow. As he jumped around the place, Kurama fed him instructions on how to mask his chakra, as the Anbu could easily find him by that alone, long after he was out of sight. By some luck, Naruto managed to deceive the Anbu, and got away. Soon enough, he was in the forest. Once hidden behind the cover of the plants, he changed into his fox form, instantly masking his chakra again as per Kurama's instructions, in case the Anbu found out he entered the forest. With that done, Naruto decided to familiarize himself with the territory he was going to live in. Meanwhile, the Hokage was informed that Naruto had eluded the Anbu, and is suspected to have entered the forest, all the while masking his chakra so as to not be found. The old man grunted. "How'd he find out how to mask his chakra?" "I don't know, sir. It isn't taught in the academy," the Anbu said. Here is and let out a sigh. "Alright, gather all the new genin. Tell them this will be their first assignment, and it is to be treated as AC rank mission. They are to spread out and find Naruto, and bring him back. Also have a small number of other ninja who are willing to do it join in as well. Should night fall, and we have failed to bring him back, send in all available clan members to find him at all costs. We cannot lose him." The Anbu nodded. "Of course, Lord Hokage." With that, he left the old man to his thoughts. Iruka had just finished sending those who had failed the test home, and was about to drill the new genin about their new status before telling them who their team leaders were. He was mid-sentence when an Anbu strolled in and turned to the genin, interrupting Iruka as he spoke. "These are the genin, correct?" "Yes," Iruka answered, confused. "What about it?" "Uzumaki Naruto has run away, and is suspected to be in the forest outside the village, and for their first mission, they are to seek him out and bring him back. Assigning teams can wait until tomorrow. This is to be treated as a C-rank mission. Should no one find him by nightfall, all available clan members are to be sent in." The Anbu recited the mission. "Go, genin," he told them, and after a moment of confusion most of them left, and a few others gathered around to strategize. The Anbu turned to Iruka. "Amino-san, all who are willing to assist in finding Uzumaki are to join in. Please help us." With that, he left the room. Iruka, slightly stunned at the turn of events, approached the genin to hear their thoughts on the matter. The group consisted of Shino, Kiba and Akamaru, Hinata, Sakura, Sasuke, Choji, Ino, and Shikamaru. Iruka suspected that Shikamaru remained in the room simply because he was too lazy to move, and was likely to require one of the other teens to drag him out. "Do any of us know Naruto enough to be sent on this mission? I mean, he could be anywhere in the forest, even back in the village, and we just haven't noticed." Ino asked. "I think it's because we were in the same class as him. They think we might know him somewhat well psychologically," Shino said. "They probably think we're closer to him than any of the villagers," Shikamaru commented. "Considering how they treat him, I'm not surprised by their thinking," Sasuke muttered. "Yeah, but we never really did anything to make him feel welcome here either," Sakura pointed out. "You're making me feel horrible at how we treated him," Kiba said. Akamaru whimpered at his partner's sadness. "It's true though. None of us did anything really nice to him," Choji whispered sadly. "Poor Naruto-kun," Hinata muttered. Failing again must have been the final straw. Apparently feeling motivated for once, Shikamaru lifted his head of the desk, where it had been resting. Everyone looked at him in surprise. Ignoring them, he said, "Okay, we first need to know what he's planning. Is he going to live out in the forest, or planning on running away to another village?" "I have a good feeling that he'd run to another village," Hinata said. "He's had to deal with the whole village's abuse this whole time. Why would he want to stay here?" "I agree," Kiba said. "Frankly, if he had been suffering this whole time, I'm surprised that he was bothered enough to stay and not run away with a traveling merchant or someone." "Yes, but we have to remember that Naruto doesn't have any money," Sakura said. "And getting to another village without someone to take you and or you lack a map, you're probably going to get killed." "Yes, but also remember that he's stupid enough to try it," Ino reminded her. "This is getting us nowhere fast," Shikamaru groaned. "That's true, but rushing in blindly is just as bad, and we'll probably end up with even worse results," Choji said. Everyone nodded in agreement. Meanwhile, Iruka was impressed. When told to find someone, they stopped and thought out what was going on, and what the person might do, based on their knowledge of them, instead of running around like chickens with their heads cut off. "Sitting here isn't going to get us anywhere, especially if we can't figure out what did he do," Ino sighed. "I say we go out there and get Kiba and Akamaru to follow his trail as far as possible. They have great noses, right?" Kiba smirked in pride as he said, "Yep, Akamaru and I can find him, no problem." With no other good plan popping up, the group left, Iruka following, interested in what they planned to do. While he technically should have gone out on his own search, he decided to follow the 8 of them to ensure their safety and see how they worked in the field. Outside, Kiba managed to pick up Naruto's scent by the south gate. "Found him," Kiba announced while Akamaru barked happily. They started to follow the trail until it split in multiple directions. Apparently he knew that he would be tracked. It splits off in at least 3 directions, and there might be more down the road. "How'd he do that?" Choji asked. "If one suspects that a dog or someone with an incredible sense of smell is going to follow them, they can head one way for a while, and then turn back and go another way. Rinse and repeat, and soon enough you've successfully confused the animal or person, and they won't know which way is correct until they've hit a dead end," Shikamaru explained. "There are 3 paths in front of us," Kiba said. "One for me, and another for Akamaru. The last one will have to be saved for later, unless one of you guys can somehow enhance your senses. I can take control of one of the local wildlife to take the 3rd trail," Ino offered. "Great, go for it," Kiba said. "Okay, while she finds an animal with a good sniffer, let's divide into groups." Iruka took the moment to step in. "Because you're going to be divided tomorrow anyway, I'll tell you your teams now. Kiba, you're with Hinata and Shino. Sakura and Sasuke, your other team member went off by himself, so I'll accompany you 2 and Akamaru. And finally, Choji, Shikamaru, and Ino are in a group." Everyone shrugged and went down their trails, agreeing to throw a special kunai in the air, provided by Iruka, which would explode and display the number of the trail they're on should they find Naruto or run into danger. Why he happened to have such a tool on him confused all of the genin, but they didn't choose to question it. Meanwhile, Choji and Shikamaru waited for Ino. After a minute, they both figured something was wrong and ran in the direction she went. It didn't take long to find her limp body or the fox she had taken over. It was staring blankly into space, twitching a little, but otherwise not moving. "Hey," Shikamaru said, lightly poking it. When it didn't move, he turned to Choji. "Think it's talking to her? I thought only strong-willed humans could talk to her once she's hijacked their body," Choji said. Shikamaru nodded, deep in thought. Meanwhile, in a minute into the past, Ino had just taken over a fox. "This'll work nicely," she thought to herself. Before she could even take a step, though, a deep, rumbling voice called out, "Who are you?" And suddenly the fox's body froze as the fox attempted to regain control of its body. And then a third voice came into the mix. "Kurama, what's going on? I can't move my body? Naruto?" Ino thought as she recognized the voice. "It appears that this little pest has somehow taken over your body, Kit," Kurama responded. "Can we bring them by your cage to talk to them?" The third voice that was suspected to be Naruto asked. "I don't know, can we?" Kurama joked. When Naruto didn't respond, he added, "Yes, we can, Kit, give me a second to pull them in." A force suddenly pulled her into an area that was in depressingly bad shape. Before she could figure out where she was, she spied what appeared to be a giant cage, and behind it, an equally giant nine-tailed fox that was staring at her with interest. Surprised, Ino let out a shriek and started to back up, tripping over a part of the floor that had cracked and was protruding upwards, landing with a small splash as she landed in the ankle-deep water. "Calm down." Naruto's voice rang throughout the area as he ran to her, appearing from nowhere in front of the cage, keeping the fox away from her. He looked down at her. "Don't worry, he won't bite. Actually, he can't." "Wah," was all that could come out of Ino's mouth as she tried to figure out what just happened. "What, you can't figure out what's going on?" Naruto smiled and crouched so he could be at eye level with her. "You're inside my mindscape." Ino looked around. "It's in pretty pathetic shape then." Naruto shrugged, standing back up and offering his hand to her. "I try to ignore it." "This isn't something you should ignore," Ino told him, taking his hand and returning to her feet. "I've already told him." "He didn't listen," the fox said. "I can tell," Ino muttered, trying to remain calm. "So, why do you have a giant fox in a cage in your mind?" Naruto glanced back at the fox. "That's Kurama, the Kyuubi no Kitsune that almost destroyed the village. He was sealed away inside me about 10 minutes after I was born." "Why do you say that like it's a regular occurrence?" Ino asked as she attempted to process the information. "Well, I've only known he was there for about 3 days, but I'm used to him by now. I don't see a need to act like he's the most amazing thing ever every time I see him," Naruto explained. "Right. Anyway, why'd you run away? The whole village is on the lookout for you. All of us genin were sent out to search for you before we were even assigned our teams." "Sorry," Naruto apologized. "I just couldn't take it anymore. You know, like how everyone treated me in the village. They would glare, occasionally even slap me, and just the downright hated me for something I had no control over. And Kurama offered to teach me a transformation technique that would allow me to live outside of the village. How could I refuse?" "You do realize you're giving up ramen for this, right?" Ino asked, aware of his love for the food. "Yes, I do," Naruto confirmed. "Like I said, I couldn't take it anymore. Giving up ramen is a small price to pay for my freedom." "So you took the form of a fox and ran away after failing again, huh?" "Well, that's one way to deal with your problems. Probably not the best way, but whatever floats your boat, I guess. But you have to return to the village. Should night fall, and you aren't found, all clan members will be out looking for you, and I can guarantee, with 10 Inuzukas on your tail, you are going to be caught." Naruto thought for a second. "But I want to be out here. It was my decision to run to a place where no one will see me as something I'm not." "Obviously you don't see the irony in your own words, Kit," Kurama chuckled. "What do you mean?" Naruto asked. "You're saying you want people to stop seeing you as something you aren't, and to accomplish this, you're taking the form of a fox, which is something you aren't," Ino explained. "Oh, didn't think about it like that," Naruto said. Clearly, the other two said in unison. "Naruto, maybe you should return," Kurama advised. "Talk to the Hokage about it. You may be able to reach a compromise." Naruto sighed, but then nodded. "Fine," he muttered. "Good. Now can you let me out of your mind so I can get out of your body?" Ino requested. Naruto nodded and let her out. His body, as Shikamaru and Choji watched, jerked as she resumed control. Finally, Shikamaru groaned. "We were starting to worry." Ino returned to her body. "Sorry guys." Apparently, though, Naruto was right here all this time. The two looked at her like she was crazy, and then looked at the fox, who was waiting patiently for them to move or address him. "Hey, Naruto, can't you change back into a human now?" Ino asked him. The fox nodded and transformed back into Naruto. "Huh, you aren't crazy," Shikamaru said, earning a punch on the shoulder. "Come on, let's get the others," Choji said, pulling out the kunai Iruka gifted him. He threw it in the air, watching its effects. "Let's get back to the gate," Shikamaru said, walking away with the others following. The other genin were quite surprised, and a little miffed, upon learning that Naruto had been 20 feet away from them the whole time. "Dumbass," Sakura yelled, smacking him over the head. "Hey," Naruto yelled, rubbing his sore head. "To be fair, you kind of deserved it for running off like that." "I'm surprised I didn't do that myself," Ino said. "I guess I have to thank Kurama for saving me from getting smacked twice then," Naruto groaned. "Kurama? Isn't that your imaginary friend that you were talking to earlier?" Sakura asked. Ino raised an eyebrow at Naruto. He took notice of this and asked, "What was I supposed to say?" Good point, she replied. What are you two muttering about? Sasuke asked with a bored tone. Nothing that concerns you, Naruto said. Naruto, Iruka said, bringing the boy's attention to his teacher. Why'd you run away? It was at that moment that Naruto finally snapped, utterly pissed that no one saw their own crimes against him. All of you people treat me like utter shit. Naruto accused them, deciding to be blunt about it. He looked around at everyone's faces, and found that they seemed to have realized that a while ago, and now just looked ashamed of themselves. Shikamaru and Choji are the people that I could even come close to considering friends, but even then, they still treat me like shit a good chunk of the time. He turned to Iruka. I'm failing my classes, even whenever I give an honest effort, and you do nothing but yell at me for fucking up. Even when I'm trying my damnedest to do the best that I can possibly do. In response, Iruka turned his attention to the ground in shame. Tears started to gather in his eyes as he turned his attention to the village in general, yelling at the top of his lungs, "Villagers hit me, gang up on me, and every single ninja that should be on the lookout for stupid shit like that ignore it," as though it was nothing more than a pitiful argument. At this point, a crowd started to gather to hear what the boy had to say. You all hate me, despise me for a creature that is stuck inside of me. Naruto slapped a hand over the seal on his stomach as the tears finally started to fall down his face. And he isn't even bad. I've met him, and he is a kinder individual than all of you dumbasses could ever hope to be. He is more of family to me than this whole fucking village, and I've only known him for 3 fucking days. In a quieter voice, he said, I ran away because I'm living in a cage like an animal in a zoo, with a bunch of bullies poking me just to infuriate me and see how long it will take for me to snap. Suddenly reminded why he ran away to begin with, he turned and fled. Shit, Ino yelled. After him, damn it, Sasuke yelled. Most of the genin, and the crowd that had gathered for that matter, were too stunned at the boy's accusations to move. And so Ino, Sasuke, Shino, and, at Akamaru's urging, Kiba ran after him. Shino, use your bugs to slow him down. Kiba yelled. Shino nodded and sent half of his colony over to grab him. The bugs managed to lift him in the air, but he was struggling, and the tiny insects obviously couldn't hold him much longer. They dropped him and he took a second to transform into his fox form. Sasuke took the opportunity to throw kunai to slow him down enough so they could catch up to him. Shino's bugs caught up again and dragged him into the air just long enough for Ino to transfer her mind back into his body. Let me go, damn it! Naruto yelled, dragging her back into his mind. Naruto, you have every right to be upset. But running is only going to make things worse, Ino told him to try to calm him down. No, I'm not going back, Naruto yelled. Turning to the Kyuubi for support, Ino asked, you agree, right, Kurama? Kurama nodded. Something tells me that it won't help you if I agree, but yes, I do agree. Kurama, Naruto yelled, annoyed that his friend would take her side. Told you, Kurama said with a shrug. Looks like this is on you. With that, he curled up and blocked out the 2 teens that were yelling at him. Some help he is, Ino muttered sarcastically. Anyway, whether you like it or not, you're going to return to the village. Your body is frozen in place. One of the boys probably picked you up and is returning right now. I told you, I don't want to return. Naruto yelled. You don't have a choice. Deciding that this conversation was getting them nowhere fast, she said, all right. How about this? I will help you reach a compromise with the Hokage so that you can live outside the village, so long as you come back without complaints or trying to run away again, okay? Naruto thought for a second before getting in. Deal, he muttered. Alright, Ino let out a sigh of relief. Now let me out of your mind. Naruto complied, and she left Naruto's body. She awakened to find her body slung over Kiba's shoulder. He noticed that she had returned to her body and put her down. Sasuke was holding Naruto under his arm as though he was a piece of property that he didn't quite care about. When Naruto awakened, he struggled a little, but Sasuke didn't let him go. You can let him go, Ino told him. I've reached an agreement with him, he won't run away again. If he does, then you'll be the one looking for him, Sasuke told her as he let Naruto drop. Naruto scrambled over to Ino, seemingly as a way of avoiding Sasuke's glare, and also to make sure she held her end of the bargain. Upon entering the village, he transformed back into a human and proceeded to grab Ino's wrist and drag her all the way to the Hokage. Would you let me go? Ino yelled as she pulled her wrist out of Naruto's grasp upon reaching the Hokage's office. "Oh, sorry," Naruto apologized as he opened the door. "I'm sure you are," Ino muttered sarcastically. The Hokage looked up at the two as they entered. "Ah, you found him. Good," he nodded in satisfaction. "Not so fast," Naruto growled, surprising the old man. "We came here to demand," he didn't get to finish the sentence. "Not demand, moron," Ino yelled. "Request," Naruto corrected through clenched teeth. "That I live outside the village from now on." The Hokage raised an eyebrow. What brought this about? Naruto started to rant about the village's treatment towards him again. When he was done letting off steam, Ino sighed and said, "He's been high-strung like this ever since I convinced him to return." In response to this, Naruto growled, "I know you're not happy about how you've been treated, but I can't allow you live outside the village. You're kept here for your safety," Hiruzen informed him. "Is that why I'm never given a chance to show that I have what it takes to become a ninja? Even though I can't do a simple clone? Is that why everyone treats me like garbage? Because they know I can't leave or do anything about them, and you're just as likely to step in and help me as a rock?" Naruto retorted. "Naruto, I have tried to stop them. But they're more persistent as you. Why don't you give it a shot?" Ino asked. "I've been in his mind, and it's a complete wreck. Maybe some time away from the villagers could allow his mental state to improve. If anything, maybe then he'll be a bit more competent then." Naruto glared at her. "Are you saying I'm not competent now? It's simply too dangerous for you to be out there alone," Hiruzen argued. "What if I could get someone to accompany me?" Naruto asked. To this, the old man was silent as he considered the pros and cons of this. "Please, Ino'll come with me." "What? I don't want to be dragged into this more than I have to." Ino yelled. "But you're the first one to tolerate me in forever." Naruto continued to plead with her while the Hokage thought. "Uzumaki Naruto," he finally spoke, gaining the boy's attention. "I will give you 1 month to live in the forest, to see how it affects your mental condition," he smiled. "Provided that you're willing to tell the Yamanakas why their daughter isn't going to be home for a month when she should be doing D-rank missions." "Shouldn't this be classified as a mission or something?" Ino asked. Hiruzen nodded. "It will be classified as a C rank then. If anything, it will give you a valid reason for not being there for your team's D-rank missions." After thinking for another moment, he said, "Give me a week though, before you go. I wish to have another person from another village come with you. I've heard that he's batshit insane, because he too holds a tailed beast inside him, so maybe this will help him out." "Sure," Naruto nodded, "but I'll only wait a week, got it? No more." He ran out of the office, with Ino quickly following. "I'm going to regret this, aren't I?" The old Hokage asked himself as the door to his office closed, leaving him with only a single Anbu with him. "I'm sure you are, sir," the Anbu answered. Meanwhile, Naruto was following Ino to her home because he had to tell her family of the mission. Along the way, Kurama stopped him. "Hang on, Naruto." Naruto stopped. "What's up?" he asked. "We should really find out if she has enough chakra first." Kurama replied. "Yeah, that's important." "Huh," Naruto muttered in realization. Ino turned to look at him. "What are you talking to him about?" "It just dawned on us that we have no idea if you have enough chakra to transform," he informed her. "Well, is there any way to check?" Kurama, do you know? I don't generally do this stuff, kid," Kurama replied. "Kurama, is no?" Naruto asked in a teasing tone. "You're the one who told me to check. You got to help out." Kurama chuckled. "Alright, just, make physical contact, I guess." "You guess? You seem really unsure there." "Just do it," Kurama growled. Naruto laughed. "Alright, fine." He turned his attention back to the world around him. Kurama doesn't have a clue, so he says to just make physical contact. Kurama growled in annoyance, muttering that Naruto had to learn to not make it sound like the Kyuubi no Kitsune didn't know something. "I thought he would know how to do that sort of stuff," Ino said. "Me too," Naruto replied, placing his hand on her shoulder. "This good for you, Kurama?" he asked in a slightly mocking tone. "Don't make fun of me, kid. Otherwise, I will take extreme measures to ensure that you never get a girlfriend." "Oh, that's just mean. Not like it matters, really. I'm never going to be able to get a girlfriend anyway, regardless of what you do. Remember the whole, village hates me thing." Kurama laughed. "Yes, but if you ever get a shot, I will ensure that you will fail miserably." "You are a horrible individual," Naruto said. "Now can you get on with chakra measuring?" Kurama let out a huff before falling silent. A moment passed, and then he said, barely. Naruto removed his hand, asking, barely? Yes, as in, she barely has enough, Kurama responded. She'll probably only be able to use it once a day, at best. At worst, death. Death? Naruto asked. Well, if you barely have enough chakra to perform a jutsu, and you fuck it up, then death is likely to occur. Well, that's just great. Is there any way to remedy the problem? Be careful, Kurama answered, helpfully. Thanks, you're so much help, Naruto sighed. So what's he say? Ino asked. You barely have enough. If you fuck up, death is likely to occur, Naruto said. Just great. Just be careful, and you should be fine. At least, according to the all-knowing Kyuubi. Are you insulting me, Kit? Kurama growled. Nope, Naruto lied as he started to walk again. Kurama made a mental note to mess with his Jinchuriki later. When they arrived, Ino gestured to her father, trying to stifle her laughter as Naruto stuttered out the details of the mission. Is that so? Inoichi asked with an amused look on his face. Your people skills are just horrible, Ino informed him. I've been an outcast my whole life. You try talking to someone that you're afraid is going to kill you if you say anything wrong thing. Naruto replied. I'm not going to kill you unless you pose a threat, kid, Inoichi informed him, seemingly interested in what he had said. Thank you, Naruto said. You're one of the few people that don't see me as something that'll suddenly change into the Kyuubi and kill you all. No, it's going to take a while for your seal to weaken enough for my power to seep through, Kurama said. And how long do you figure that'll take? Naruto asked while Inoichi just looked confused. Ignore his one-sided conversations. The Kyuubis recently decided to chat with him on a regular basis, and so it looks like he's yelling at himself constantly, Ino whispered to her father. Is it safe for him to talk to the tailed beast? He asked. How should I know? Disregarding that, Kurama is actually really nice. I think the village just did something to piss him off that day when he attacked. Naruto finished his conversation with Kurama to find Inoichi studying him intently. Why are you staring at me? The Kyuubi isn't dangerous, is it? He asked. Naruto shook his head. He's as harmless as a fly, so long as I have the seal. Naruto pat his stomach. Alright, you don't seem like a bad kid. A little strange, but not necessarily bad. I'll tell you what. You make sure that my girl returns with nothing more than minor injuries. If you don't, you'll gut me? Naruto guessed. Inoichi chuckled. I think I like you. I'll just assume that's a yes, Naruto muttered, slightly frightened. 1 week passed, and Naruto had successfully avoided all human contact in that time. He just didn't want to deal with the villagers' shit. So, with the last week until he could leave the hellhole he called home gone, he finally left his apartment. He made his way to Ino's place, and was greeted by her dad. He waited for a minute until she was ready, and then they made their way to the Hokage's office. Along the way, they discussed what they were bringing with them. The items they were bringing consisted of a blanket, first aid kit, a training kunai, which was something that Naruto just happened to have on him, and a change of clothes in case something happened to the ones they were wearing, but since they were planning on being animals most of the time, and likely weren't going to change back into human too often, they hoped they weren't going to be used. All of this was contained in a storage scroll. Naruto burst into the Hokage's office. Hey, it's been a week. Is that other kid here? Hiruzen looked over at him, as well as the other person in the room, his hide wrapped around the leather band holding the gourd on his back, identifying him as from the sand, who had been chatting with the old man. Haven't you ever heard of knocking? Ino asked. Naruto was just about to respond, when the teen that had been rudely interrupted in his talk raised his hand and sand flew from a gourd, wrapping around Naruto and threatening to crush him. Gaara, stop! Hiruzen yelled, jumping out of his seat. Hey, let him go! Ino yelled, jumping forward and trying to break his concentration. Why should I? Gaara asked, glancing at her. Ino, stunned at the boy's lack of regard for others, took a moment to reply. What did he ever do to you? Shukaku doesn't like foxes, he answered. The hell does that mean? Ino yelled angrily. If I release him, what do I get? Gaara asked, ignoring her question. What do you want? I'm not sure. I don't think I can help you if you don't know what you want. Could you hurry up your negotiations? I'm getting crushed here. Naruto yelled. I'm working on it. Ino yelled back. Gaara's your name, right? Gaara nodded. Alright, could please slacken your grip on him? You won't get anything if he dies. Gaara studied her for a second, before loosening the sand around Naruto, listening as he gasped for breath for a second. "Tell me, why are you trying to save him?" "Well, I don't want to feel guilty that he died when I can do something about it," she responded. "I don't see the point," Gaara said. "Do you even know what a friend is?" "Nope. My whole village hates me." "Why does this feel familiar? Does your village hate you too?" "No, they hate the boy you're about to crush." Ino jabbed her thumb in Naruto's direction. Gaara thought for a second. "Alright then, I think what I want is a friend." "Well, you have to work a little to get a friend, really." Gaara's eye twitched and he tightened his grip on Naruto. "Ino, just be his friend." Naruto yelled. Ino sighed. "Why am I the one getting dragged into the group of weirdos?" she asked herself. "But fine. Gaara, release him, and I'll be your friend." Gaara seemed to find that satisfactory, and dropped Naruto, who fell to the ground like a rag doll. He watched with mild interest as the blonde picked himself up. Ignoring Gaara entirely, Naruto turned to the Hokage and said, "Hey old man. You never answered my question. About the third member of your party, correct?" Hiruzen asked, to which Naruto nodded. "Ah, yes, he's right there." Naruto turned around and stared at Gaara. "Him? He tried to kill me." "Think about that as his way of saying hello," the old man whispered. "What?" Naruto yelled. While Naruto argued with the old man about how he was going to get killed, Gaara turned to Ino. "So you're one of the people accompanying me to the forest?" Ino nodded. "Yep, though I'm not sure how I got dragged into it." Gaara nodded and looked back at Naruto, who showed no sign of shutting his trap. Seemingly annoyed by the constant yelling, he stepped forward. "Will you shut it?" Naruto turned around to look at Gaara and glared at him. He received a glare back. Ino stepped in between them. "If we are going to be living together for a whole month, then you two need to be able to get along. At the very least, you have to stop glaring at each other as though you're going to strangle each other the first chance you get." Both males let out a huff and looked away. Gaara turned around and left the room, and Naruto jumped out the open window. Ino and Hiruzen watched the two leave. "Why me?" Ino groaned. "Well, just try and be friends with the both of them, and try to stay out of their fights," Hiruzen advised. "Teenage males tend to do that, after all." "Yes, but I'm worried that they'll destroy the world. They both have tailed beasts in them, after all. It's one thing to have two stupid kids dueling, but if the beasts get involved, you know things are going to get messy." Hiruzen nodded. "True. If that happens, try to calm them down. As far as I can tell, you're Naruto's only friend, and I think Gaara wants to be your friend." "Again, why was I the one dragged into this?" Ino asked. "Luck," Hiruzen shrugged. Ino sighed before leaving the room. She found that Gaara had yet to leave the building, probably because he had no idea where anything was located, or he just didn't want to run into Naruto, and run the risk of killing him again. He followed behind her as she left, however, seemingly trusting her enough to keep him in check. They found Naruto slurping down a couple final bowls of ramen. When he was done, they proceeded to leave the village. No one stopped them, possibly because of the murderous aura Gaara continued to give off. After 5 minutes of wandering in the woods, Ino and Gaara both started to think the same thing. Is this really worth it? They wondered this because Naruto said that he had found a decent cave not far from a river no more than a mile away from the village. And yet, they had yet to find it. "Are you sure you know where you're going?" Gaara asked. Naruto snarled. "Of course I do. And that's why you are completely lost," Gaara retorted. "I'd like to see you do better." Naruto growled. "Fine," Gaara said, taking the lead. "He annoys me," Naruto snarled to Ino. "What is wrong with you two? I know he tried to hurt you, but can you just get over it?" Ino sighed. "Kurama agrees. He doesn't like this raccoon," Naruto said, not even realizing he called Gaara a raccoon. "Raccoon? What is with you two and calling each other specific animals?" Ino asked. "He holds the one tail, Shukaku, a raccoon that doesn't get along with foxes because Kurama's the most powerful," Naruto said, glaring at the back of Gaara's head. "Okay, your beasts don't get along. Can at least you humans get along?" Ino requested. "No guarantees," Naruto said, watching Gaara intently as he changed direction. Less than a minute passed, and Gaara had found the stream that Naruto had said was by the cave he found. "How'd you find it so easily?" Ino asked. "Soon as in a desert, so you have to be good at finding moisture in the soil that leads to a river," Gaara answered. Naruto scoffed, muttering, "Show off." The other two decided that commenting would just cause another argument, so they decided to just go looking for the cave, leaving Naruto to his muttering. It didn't take long to find the cavern that they figured was what Naruto saw. It was only then that they realized that Naruto had yet to catch up to them. "Think we should go look for him?" Gaara asked. "Only if he isn't here by noon," Ino answered with little concern as she looked around their temporary home. Gaara seemed unsure, but he decided to just trust his new friend's judgment, and started to mentally map out what the space should be used for. It was somewhat small, but the center could be used for a fire pit, and around it could be used for basic beds. Gaara himself didn't sleep much because of Shukaku, so he figured he would spend the nights training or doing something else to keep his mind engaged. Ino had the same sort of idea, so they started to discuss where everything should be. Once they agreed, they both started to gather moss for their beds. After that had been finished, and a fire pit was built, both of them started to get worried about Naruto. Neither required a discussion about what to do. It didn't take long to find Naruto, who was in his fox form, and was eating away at a dead rabbit. Naruto-kun," Gaara asked to get the blonde's attention. Naruto looked up, the blood around his mouth and the glare he sent at the redhead causing him to give off a murderous bead until he changed back into a human. "What are you doing?" Ino asked. "Eating," Naruto responded. "What are you doing? We were looking for you. You didn't follow us. And you're not bothering to cook the rabbit," Gaara replied, slightly confused as to why Naruto was eating the rabbit raw. "Yes, I am eating it raw. And you took this long to notice I didn't follow you?" Naruto questioned. "No, we realized relatively quickly. We just figured you were off in your own little world with Kurama and decided to leave you alone for a while," Ino answered. Naruto grunted. "Thanks." Neither Ino nor Gaara were sure how to respond to that, so they moved on. "We found the cave," Ino informed him. "Oh, great," Naruto said with an uncaring tone. "What is wrong with you?" Ino asked, getting quickly annoyed at the blonde. "I wanted to live out here on my own," Naruto yelled. "Not with a raccoon that hates Kurama. Besides that initial attack, Gaara-kun has no tried to harm you in any way," Ino yelled. Naruto was about to retort, but Gaara stepped in to stop them. "Ino-chan, aren't you supposed to be the one to stop the fighting?" Ino sighed. "Right, sorry. Hey Naruto-kun, we need to work on that transformation, just you." "Sure," Naruto grumbled, sitting down and gesturing for her to do the same. "Just transfer your mind to me." "Transfer your mind?" Gaara questioned as he sat down and Ino preformed the just you. Naruto looked at Gaara as Ino's body slumped over into his lap, startling him. "Yep. I can put my mind into the body of any other living creature and use them for all sorts of things. Recon, talking to Kurama, flying as a bird because it's fun," she muttered the last part of her small list. "My body's completely vulnerable while my mind's gone, though. Keep it safe for me, okay?" Gaara nodded as he tried to process the information. "Flying?" he asked himself, utterly confused, after she zoned out. In Naruto's mind, Kurama taught the same steps to Ino. While she was normally a quick learner, this just you took a while to master. Eventually, though, she had it. She had mostly gray, quite long fur that almost looked purple, with white wrapped around her midsection and back legs, with the same blue-gray as what Naruto had on her back paws. The same color also appeared wrapped around her waist in the same place as her Hite-8 on her human form. "Remember that you can only use it once a day for now," Kurama reminded her. Ino nodded. "Right, and if I try to do any more, I'll kill myself, got it?" With that out of the way, she left Naruto's mind, and then proceeded to leave his body. The group got up and started over to the cave. "You know, we need to teach Gaara-kun to transform too," Ino realized. "You do it. I can't get into his mind," Naruto grumbled. "What does being in my mind have to do with anything?" Gaara asked. "You don't waste any chakra in your mind," Ino explained. Gaara nodded in understanding before falling silent for the rest of the trip. Back at the cave, Ino transferred her mind into Gaara's body, and found that Shukaku didn't enjoy the hijack. He forced her out in less than a second. "Well, that's not going to work," she muttered. "I don't know if I can reason with him, but let me try," Gaara said, closing his eyes and concentrating. A couple seconds passed, and he opened his eyes. "All right, he won't force you out this time. Just don't transform into a fox, or mention one. You know how he hates them." "Got it," Ino said, transferring her mind again. Pushing her way into his mindscape, She found herself face to face with what appeared to be a raccoon made of sand. That didn't have a cage keeping it from ripping her to shreds. She refrained from repeating what happened with Kurama, but that didn't stop the terrified look on her face from showing her fear. Shukaku chuckled. I'm surprised you haven't run away yet, child. Yes, well, I was expecting a giant animal, so I was able to refrain from it. Plus, I have nowhere to run, she replied. Where's Gara-kun? Right here, said Teen answered, appearing beside Shukaku. Alright then, so what form do you want to take? Ino asked. Well, a raccoon would be a bit out of place beside you too. Gara said. Anything will look weird beside two foxes unless you are one, Ino replied. Shukaku's eye twitched at the mention of foxes, but he managed to keep himself from killing the girl. Though why he didn't confused him. Besides, are raccoons even carnivores? They're omnivores, actually, Shukaku informed her. Oh, alright, back on topic, Gara-kun? Ino asked, looking back at the Jinchuriki. Well, if anything's going to look out of place, then I guess a wolf. Wolves live in these woods, right? Last I checked. Is that what you're going to feel comfortable looking like? Gara shrugged. Might not. We'll just have to find out. Wouldn't you prefer a raccoon, though, considering Shukaku's one? I think I want to try something taller. Raccoons are generally not that tough compared to even a fox too, and that would put me at a disadvantage. Having large, sharp fangs would be nice, too. And they're better than foxes in that regard. Ino nodded. Yeah, alright then. Though it seems to me that you just have a love for wolves. Gara looked away and said, maybe. Ino laughed at him and showed him the steps for the jutsu. After gaining Shukaku's permission, she transformed into her fox form to demonstrate. It didn't take him long to get the hang of it. He too retained the basic color schemes from his clothes, which he bothered to spend a while on, although changing the color of his fur turned out to be much harder than he had expected. When he asked Ino how she and Naruto managed to make themselves have the same color schemes as their clothes, she shrugged. I'm not sure how Naruto did it, but I naturally had the grayish purple as the base color, and then I just added on the white and the grayish blue. Finding that his question would go unanswered because she had no idea how it worked, he returned to his attempt. Eventually, probably at least an hour in the real world, he had finished. He was, of course, a wolf with somewhat short fur. The main color was black, with brown running from his left shoulder to his right hip, as well as white that ran from his right shoulder to his left, which overlapped the brown. There was a small amount of white around his ankles, as well as a small amount on his right back foot. He had a small splash of grayish-blue color where his hitate was normally located. Intricate, Ino commented, and yet, it works somewhat well. She yawned. Well, I have a damn good feeling that it's pretty late, so goodbye. With that parting message, she left Gara's body. It was indeed rather late when the two of them opened their eyes. Naruto, in his fox form, was currently eating a rabbit, again, raw, he had caught not long after they zoned out. When he saw that they were back to reality, he ripped off the legs and passed them over to them. Seeing that there wasn't a fire to cook the meat with, the two decided to suck it up and eat it raw. Gara decided that it might taste better as an animal, so he changed into a wolf. He found it actually to be slightly enjoyable, so long as he beat down Shukaku, who was starting to go crazy over the warm, juicy, bloody leg his Jinchuriki was munching on. Ino, who figured it was too risky to transform having used a jutsu recently, found the meal considerably less enjoyable. After stripping the whole body of any meat, they figured they should call it a night and curled up on their makeshift beds. Ino, again, not transformed, lacked any sort of covering, and thus found herself unable to sleep. Sitting up and letting out a small sigh, she tried to think about what to do. You're still up? Gara asked from his spot, which he was sitting cross-legged on, at one point having transformed back into a human. Yeah, it's too cold, she replied. Why are you still up? I can't get more than an hour of sleep before Shukaku takes over my body and murders everyone within a couple miles, Gara answered. How do you survive with that sort of sleep schedule? You get used to it after a while, he answered. Besides, every new moon, Shukaku's power is weak enough for me to get a whole night's worth of sleep. That doesn't sound very safe. I mean, how you not completely nuts from the lack of sleep? Like I said, you get used to it after a while. Though I do occasionally have moments. Remember when I almost crushed Naruto? That was one of them. Now that you mention it, what was up with your attitude in the village? Ino asked, gaining a questioning look from Gaara, which was unseen in the dark. After we got out of the village, you completely change. You and Naruto still don't get along very well, but you seem less, murderous. I'm away from a large population. Shukaku's almost completely dormant when there aren't many people to murder, Gaara explained. Well, that's unnerving, Ino said. Gaara nodded, which was again missed in the lack of light. I agree. However, I've gotten used to it, so I hardly even notice it anymore. When he's active, I tend to go a little crazy without realizing it. He seemed pretty active in your mindscape, Ino pointed out. Is that what you consider dormant? No, he bothered to get off his lazy ass to meet you, strangely enough. Gaara twitched. He doesn't like being talked about. And he's yelling at you to go to sleep. He says you have enough chakra to transform, so do it. Why can he tell how much chakra I have remotely, but Kurama requires physical contact? Ino asked. Gaara shrugged. How should I know? All I know is that he's going to try and murder you if you don't go to sleep. Lovely, Ino said sarcastically, using the transformation technique. She was asleep in a second, not because now she had fur to keep her warm, but because the sudden lack of chakra her body possessed, which was now at borderline dangerous levels, forced her unconscious. Gaara, not realizing this fact, was shocked at the female's ability to fall asleep so long as she was warm. The next morning, which was now noon, Gaara came back from a quick hunting trip to find Naruto picking up Ino, who was still unconscious. She's still asleep? Gaara asked. Yeah, Naruto replied. I'm probably going to beat up for this, but I'm going to go dunk her in the river. Is that smart? Gaara asked. I don't know if she even knows how to walk, let alone swim, as a fox. That's why I'm probably going to get beat up, Naruto said. And don't worry, I'll make sure she doesn't drown. Though slightly concerned for his friends, he wasn't sure if he was more concerned for Naruto or Ino though. He shrugged and returned to the cave, dividing up the rabbit that he had caught. A minute later, he faintly heard a fox yipping, clearly in annoyance, signifying that Naruto had been successful in waking Ino. Meanwhile, with those two, Ino, who was dripping wet, was yelling at Naruto. He had apparently thought it to be a good idea to just chuck her in the middle of the stream. The shock of waking in such a manner, coupled with her inability to swim properly as a fox, as well as the strength of the current, caused her to be swept away, requiring Naruto to save her. After she was done coughing up water, she began to yell at him. Naruto was a human, and as such couldn't understand any of her yips, and he was glad that he couldn't, as he figured she was yelling some unsavory things. He sighed. Sorry, but you weren't waking, he apologized. In response, she growled, which could easily be translated to, you didn't have to throw me in. Naruto shrugged indifferently. Sorry, he repeated. Ino continued to bark at him. After a minute, Naruto held up his hand, silently asking for her to stop talking for a second. He transformed into a fox, saying, There, now I can understand you. You mean you couldn't understand me before? Ino yelled. Yeah, Naruto replied. What do you expect? From you, not much, Ino sighed. What I was saying was that I was unconscious because transforming drained me off almost all of my chakra, and that's exhausting. Not that you would know the feeling, having nigh infinite chakra. Oh, Naruto said. Now I feel bad. Ino began walking back to the cave, Naruto following close behind. Ah, if you didn't know, I guess I can let it slide. But if you do it again, I'm going to knock you into next week. Gotcha, Naruto responded. Have to say, though, it's really inconvenient that I'm drained of all of my chakra every time I transform, Ino sighed. Yeah, Naruto agreed. I wonder if there's a way to significantly increase your chakra pool. There is a way, Kit, Kurama said. Oh, and what's that? Naruto asked. Train, he answered simply. I thought they taught this to you in school. The more physically fit you are, the more physical energy you have to mold into chakra. Also, the more knowledgeable you are, the more mental energy you have, and therefore more energy you have to convert to chakra. It's simply, really. Well, when you put it like that, it does sound simple. They make it sound so difficult in the academy, though, and so I just gave up figuring out what they were trying to tell me. Luckily, it wasn't required for me to figure it out. Something about how we'd be taught it as genin, Naruto said. Yes, and fortunately for you, I happen to know it because of my previous jailers, Kurama said happily. Jailers? Naruto asked. Yeah, they were never very kind to me, so I think that's an adequate name for them. Naruto smiled. Alright, when do we start? After you eat, Kurama answered. Raccoon Boy brought back a rabbit. Hopefully, he hasn't eaten it all. Yeah, I hope so too. I'm hungry, Naruto complained. Back at the cave, Gaara was planning on dozing off for the next hour. Then Naruto returned and started to yell and loudly munch on the rabbit. With a sigh, he pushed himself into a sitting position. You're back, he stated simply. Yep, and after we're done eating, we're going to work on various exercises to improve our chakra. Naruto said happily, his mouth full of rabbit. Gaara nodded and awaited the two to finish eating. When they were done, they made their way to a nearby clearing. Alright, what are we going to work on first, Kurama? Naruto asked the fox. As our primary goal is to increase Ino's chakra, let's get to fighting, Kurama said happily. Fighting? Just like a spar or something? Naruto asked. Yeah, sure, if that is what you want to do, Kurama replied, probably shrugging. Though I would suggest figuring out how to fight first, before actually attempting to kill each other. Naruto nodded, turning his attention to his friends. Kurama said that we should work on basic fighting skills as animals. Makes sense, really. Yeah, I guess it does, but I don't even know where to begin. This is taijutsu with a different body, Ino pointed out. I still don't even know how to run as an animal, and fighting is rather complicated. Naruto nodded as it dawned on him the difficulties of such a task. You know, let's start with running, he said. While Naruto was working on getting Ino to adjust to her different form, Gaara tried to figure out what was the best way to approach fighting. By spreading his legs out, he gave himself a wide stance, but found that raising a paw to strike threw him off balance, and he was quickly becoming frustrated. He almost felt that his target, a rather big tree, was mocking him, daring him to try again. When Naruto and Ino returned, they found Gaara staring down a tree. Gaara-kun, what are you doing? Ino asked. Gaara jumped, not expecting anyone to interrupt his showdown with the tree. The tree was mocking me, he answered. Naruto and Ino attempted to stifle their laughter. It was mocking you? Naruto asked. I'm sorry to say, but I don't think that's possible, Ino said. Gaara sighed. I'm aware of that fact. But it still manages to. He set a glare at the tree. Whatever you say, Naruto said, rolling his eyes and laughing. Gaara grumbled and returned to the tree, taking his stance and trying to figure out what was wrong with it. He struck, once again losing his balance and falling. Ino, who had been observing, said, your stance is too wide. I'm aware of that, but if I close it any, I run into another problem, Gaara replied, picking himself up. My strikes are weak, and I still run the risk of falling. Naruto thought for a second. Kurama says that you're accustomed to having 4 legs with an altered bone structure. It just takes some getting used to. I've been trying for at least 10 minutes, Gaara growled. It's going to take longer than that, Naruto said. Think about it, it takes forever for any animal that are born with such a body to master fighting. Do you honestly think that you can figure it out in 20 minutes? No, but that doesn't mean I can't try, Gaara said, dropping into his stance again. Whatever, dude, Naruto sighed. He walked away, asking, hey, Kurama, how do you fight? Trying to take a shortcut, Kit? Kurama growled. In response, Naruto chuckled, saying, maybe. I have the torso of a human, so you can't ask me for tips. Figure it out yourself. It will be good for you anyway, Kurama replied. What? Naruto yelled. He turned to his friends. Apparently Kurama doesn't love me enough to give me even a vague hint on how to do this. He whined. Gaara rolled his eyes and sighed, returning to his attempts at attacking. He ignored the blonde yell at his beast. At least he had a fox inside him that might give some help if need be. Eventually, Naruto shut up, turning his attention to Gaara, focusing on watching what he did right in his basic stance and initial attack. However, his attack continually flopped, and Naruto got annoyed, thinking he could do better, and wandered off to find himself a decent target. Soon enough, all 3 of them had found a tree, and were trying to master basic movement. Gaara, thinking that he could master the stance that he had created, had figured out how to maintain his balance on 3 paws after a painstaking 40 minutes. This really just showed how little he actually did shit akin to actual taijutsu, as he was used to his sand doing everything, and all he had to do was open and close his hand. He quickly ran into the next snag, as he then couldn't figure out how to follow up on the initial strike. Using his other paw meant first putting down the paw that was up in the air, and that cost time. But his other paws were in the back, meaning that using them was just as pointless and time-consuming. In the same 40 minutes, Naruto had figured out his basic stance, keeping his front paws close to his body, and the back legs spread out. He was quickly figuring out how to perform a combo attack, consisting so far of a headbutt, which he hoped would throw the enemy off long enough to move into a right claw strike, and a bite. He wanted to incorporate his hind legs, but found that adding them in was a pain. However, he was quickly coming up with ideas on how to accomplish this. Finally, Ino had decided on a stance wider than Naruto's, but more closed-in than Gaara's. She had devised 2 different attack methods in the same time that it took Gaara to stand on 3 paws. Her preferred method of attack, which only really worked on tall targets, was jumping and striking with all 4 paws while in the air, then biting onto the target and holding on, finally pummeling them with all 4 limbs until something happens to cause her to jump off. She also could do a basic claw slash and then jump in the air, pushing off the target with her back legs to quickly get away, as well as stun the enemy. Naruto stopped with a sigh. "Hey guys, how are you doing?" Ino let go of the poor battered log that she had been practicing on, which at that moment she had been biting. "Not bad, you? It's going great," Naruto bragged. "How about you, Gaara?" He turned to the other male. "Well, I don't lose my balance attacking now," he said, not elaborating any further, however, knowing that the other 2 had gotten much further than him. "Good job," Naruto said sarcastically, also aware that Gaara was far behind him. "So, you guys want to put what we've figured out into practice and see if Kurama will finally help us out?" Not seeing a downside to this, the other 2 agreed. Gaara, knowing that he wasn't ready, didn't volunteer, and even downright rejected sparring Naruto first. He laughed, saying, "You just can't fight." Gaara, annoyed, growled, "I can fight. Watch me." He stepped forward, falling into his stance. Naruto smirked. "Alright, if you say so. Okay, go." Ino called out for the 2 of them. The 2 of them launched forward. Naruto jumped, attempting to attack Gaara from above. He sidestepped, striking Naruto as he faceplanted in the dirt. Recovering quickly, Naruto jumped up, backflipping away to devise a plan. Gaara didn't allow him the time, as he rushed forward. Naruto raised a paw, intent on striking Gaara when he was in range. However, Gaara quickly sidestepped the attack and jumped on Naruto's back, biting his shoulder and hanging on as Naruto attempted to bug him off. Gaara was thrown to the ground rather quickly, though, and then Naruto placed a paw on his opponent's throat. "I win," he bragged. Gaara grumbled in annoyance as he pushed Naruto's paw away, standing up. "Overall, I think that I'm amazing, and you haven't gotten anywhere." "Well, aren't you smug?" Ino said. "Let's see how you do against me then." She dropped into her stance. Naruto smirked. "Alright then, come at me." "Gladly," Ino growled, launching forward. Naruto, smirk still evident on his face, rushed forward as well, attacking with a headbutt as he neared her. He didn't expect her to jump in the air, and then land on top on him, though. He let out a cry of pain, unable to due to the mass on top of him. "I thought you were amazing," she teased. "That was too easy. Come on, you could have given me a challenge. This isn't over," Naruto yelled. "Sure," Ino laughed, quickly flipping Naruto onto his back and placing her paw on his throat. "Now is it over?" "Why yes," Naruto said. "But that was unfair. I didn't even get to attack. I don't know, it looked to me like you were attempting to headbutt me before I jumped." "I count that as an attack." "A failed one, but an attack nonetheless," Ino said. Naruto opened his mouth to argue, but found that he didn't have a valid argument. "Fine," he grumbled, pushing her paw away. "So, we still have a couple hours left in the day. Want to take a walk before returning?" Ino asked. The 2 boys agreed, and they started to walk aimlessly. Eventually, they heard sounds of fighting, and rushed over to it, finding Sasuke attempting to attack a Jonin, with horrible luck. Looking around the battlefield, the 3 animals quickly spotted the Uchiha's teammates. Sakura was hiding under a bush, just staring as Sasuke attacked, hearts in her eyes. The other member of the team was Tobio, a clumsy but kind individual. He was not far from the fight and wasn't exactly hiding, looking like he wanted to jump in, but obviously knew of the Uchiha's unwillingness to have anyone help him, and so really couldn't without just getting in the way. When Sasuke was pulled underground with the double suicide decapitation technique, the other male jumped in before the Jonin could retreat, giving the stubborn Uchiha enough time to dig himself out with Sakura's help. Seemingly because he was annoyed at the enemy, Sasuke didn't complain at Tobio for fighting with him. When the Jonin escaped so they could play hide and seek again, then Sasuke started to yell at Tobio for interfering, even though Sasuke had been clearly beaten, and by jumping in, Tobio had given him another chance. Being Sasuke's fangirl, Sakura agreed wholly with her love when Tobio was completely appalled to find Sasuke rounding on him, and argued that he saved Sasuke's ass, which the Uchiha refused to admit. On the sidelines, the three spectators watched in confusion. "I used to like that?" Ino asked, watching as Sasuke threatened to sock Tobio. "Saddening, isn't it?" Naruto asked, feeling sorry for poor Tobio. "I'm just glad that's not me. I feel rather bad for that boy that's being picked on," Gaara said. "I wonder what they're attempting to accomplish," Ino wondered. "Especially as disjointed as they are, they can't take a Jonin down, but that certainly seems to be the goal here." "Hello there," a voice behind the group greeted. In shock, the three whipped around, finding the Jonin that was battling Sasuke. "How'd he find us?" Ino whispered. "I don't know, but he can't understand us, so you don't have to whisper," Naruto replied. "I'm aware that you're human," he told them with a smile, despite the fact that he only had eye to smile with. All three of them froze in alarm. "He knows?" Gaara asked. "How?" Naruto asked. "Well, if he knows, then no point staying in our animal forms," Ino said. The two boys nodded and transformed. "Ah, Naruto, good to see you," the Jonin greeted. "Do I know you?" Naruto asked. "No, but if you passed your graduation, you would have been Tobio over there. I would have been your teacher," the Jonin replied. Naruto cringed. "I guess I should count my lucky stars. I can't believe I'm happy I didn't pass my exam." Gaara nodded. "Yes, that would have been a pain. I feel bad for you, Naruto," Ino said, not that anyone understood her. The Jonin glanced down at the fox. "Why hasn't she changed back?" "Not enough chakra," Gaara answered. "We're working on it, but last time she transformed, she fainted on the spot. Naruto had to dunk her in the river to wake her." The Jonin nodded. "And you are, Mr. Raccoon Eyes?" "Gaara," he answered. "I was sent from the sand to accompany the fox to the forest to see how it affected his mental state." "I think you were called in to see how it affected your mental state," Naruto pointed out. "Yes, I believe Hokage-sama mentioned it," the Jonin said. "So who are you?" Naruto asked. "My name is Hitaki Kakashi," the Jonin introduced himself. "So why are you watching our match?" "We were taking a walk and heard fighting, so we decided to investigate," Naruto explained. "What is your test about anyway?" Gaara asked. Kakashi smiled again. "They need to take these two bells." He held up said bells. "Whoever doesn't get one doesn't get their really late lunch." "Oh, you've turned them against each other," Naruto realized. "It's a test to see if they can overcome their differences to work together towards a common goal," Gaara stated, having figured out the reason for the test. The Jonin's jaw visibly dropped, and his eye widened. "Wow, no one, and I mean no one, out of the 13 or so teams I have had go through this test have ever figured it out in the 2 hours given, and here you are, realizing it in 2 seconds. Gaara shrugged. "It's not that difficult, it's not like they can beat you on your own, and even if they did snag a bell, you could just chase them down and steal them back." Guys? I think they found us," Naruto said, looking back at the forgotten team. Everyone turned to look at the three, who were staring at them like they were crazy. "Would you stop staring, Uchiha?" Naruto yelled. "We're trying to talk here. And I'm trying to take a test, so back off." Sasuke yelled, Sakura agreeing instantly. "I have a better idea. How about I hit you over the head?" Naruto growled. The two of them began to bicker. Gaara turned back to Kakashi. "How much longer do they have to complete the exercise?" "It should end in 3, 2, 1. Kakashi counted down. There was a loud ringing sound throughout the area. "Shit," Sasuke swore. "Indeed," Kakashi said with a smile. Sasuke grumbled in annoyance as he returned to the clock to shut it up. Sakura followed quickly, and Tobio walked slowly, clearly disheartened. The Jonin turned to Naruto, Gaara, and Ino. "You want to watch me fail them?" Naruto quickly nodded, as he hated Sasuke with a burning passion, and Ino also wanted to see Sakura fail. Gaara didn't know them, and as such didn't have much of a reason to watch, but he just went with it anyways. Back at the starting point, Kakashi ended up tying Sakura to a post for not doing shit the whole test, while Sasuke and Tobio were allowed their near 4 o'clock lunch. He then started to list off what the team did wrong. Sasuke, you completely ignored, and even downright yelled at your teammates for helping you. Sakura, you did nothing but watch Sasuke, and didn't see what was wrong in his logic when he yelled at Tobio. Tobio, I think your actions are justifiable. I'll have to move you to a team that can actually function properly. Naruto, Gaara, and Ino watched this from the sidelines in their animal forms, with the two that went to the academy with the poor. Not exactly anymore, genin feeling that everything was just about correct. You say that like you would have chewed us out even if we did get the bells, Sakura said unhappily. He would, Naruto answered after changing back into a human. Everyone turned their attention to him. This was a test to see if you could put aside your differences to work together to get the bells. Even if you had somehow snagged the bells, you still would have been chewed out because you downright refused the other members of your team. Tobio, he turned to the poor boy. Why didn't you tell them the reason? You seem to have understood the point. Tobio shook his head. They wouldn't have listened to me, he said. Sakura follows Sasuke, but he's independent, and would brush me off anyway. Stop talking like we're not here. Sakura yelled. He is stating your faults, Gaara said, transforming into a human. Maybe you should listen to him and consider what he's saying, rather than get angry at helpful criticism. It's not like you could do better anyway, Sasuke said. Wanna bet? Naruto asked. We've been together for 1 day. Gaara and I hate each other. He even tried to kill me within the first minute of meeting me, and I still bet we could beat you no problem. Gaara and Ino nodded. I hear a challenge, Sasuke said with a smirk. Same goes for me, Naruto said, also with a smirk. After 10 minutes, Kakashi finished throwing together a capture the flag styled challenge for the two feuding groups. He figured that if his team can work together even semi-correctly, then he will pass them anyway. But if they continue to do stupid things on their own, then they won't be allowed to become proper genin. Of course, they weren't aware of this. The rules for the challenge were simple. Locate the opposing team's flag, capture it, and return to their base, or knock out all of the opposing team's members. Should you encounter an enemy, you can engage or run away in hope that you can find a teammate to aid you. If you are defeated in battle, you're out of the game. One member will be in charge of handling medical care, a rule which Kakashi placed in hope that it would force Team 7 to cooperate, and get one member to stay in a stationary place. Should that member be defeated, then there are no more medical supplies that can be used for that team. Naruto's team was also given extra kunai and shuriken on account that they didn't have any of their own. Naruto's team, which Kakashi had dubbed Team Animal, located their blue flag in a clearing a little ways into the forest. Team 7's red flag was beside the lake. Kakashi gave them the go signal. Team 7, being dysfunctional and all jumped away from their base to find the opposing team's flag, unintentionally leaving theirs wide open. Team Animal stayed in place to devise a plan. I'll stay here and protect the flag, Gaara offered, mostly because he had the medical supplies. Naruto and Ino nodded, and, both in their animal forms and clutching kunai in their mouths, jumped away to seek out the flag, Naruto going to the left, and Ino to the right. Soon enough, the first battle began. It was between Sakura and Ino. Sakura knew who her opponent was, despite the different form, and as such started to blabber about how she was going to get Sasuke and all that shit. Ino rolled her eyes, muttering to herself, "Do you realize I hate him now? Of course you don't. You can't even understand me." Beginning the battle, Sakura jumped forward, launching a kunai at her foe. Ino sidestepped the knife easily, and dashed at Sakura. Said female threw various projectiles to try and harm the fox, but they too were dodged. Dropping the kunai she held, Ino jumped, biting into Sakura's left shoulder and slashing with her claws. Sakura let out a cry of pain and stabbed Ino in the right shoulder with a kunai. Ino let go with a yelp and pushed off Sakura with her back feet, gaining some distance from her foe. Ripping the blade from her shoulder, Ino raced forward and jumped up, landing a powerful paw strike on her opponent's head as she came down. Sakura collapsed, unconscious. Kakashi was there immediately, picking up the limp body and the various projectiles. "Nice job," he praised before disappearing. A couple seconds later, the Jonin's voice echoed throughout the arena like an announcer. "Haruno Sakura has been defeated by Yamanaka Ino. After taking a second to be impressed by how quick Kakashi moved and announced Sakura's defeat, Ino retrieved her fallen kunai and limped back to base, knowing that she wouldn't be able to fight another round. Back at the base, Gaara took in her condition and said sarcastically, "Nice job. Not even 5 minutes in, and you already have a hole in your shoulder." In response, Ino playfully growled at him, muttering, "At least Sakura's out." Man, it felt good to bash her over the head. Gaara chuckled at her as he got to work on her wound. Though he couldn't understand outright what was being said, he had a damn good feeling that it had something to do with taking out an enemy. "What are you laughing at?" Ino asked, raising an eyebrow. Getting what she asked, he said, "I'm laughing at you. You look so proud of yourself." "Of course I'm proud. I bashed Sakura's head in." Ino grinned, gaining another chuckle from her friend. Gaara finished dressing the wound, suggesting that Ino stay with him for Naruto to retrieve the flag. Ino nodded and sat down. Over with Naruto, he wasn't running into any trouble at all. He had yet to find any life as he weaved through the trees. And then he almost ran into Sasuke, who was telling Tobio to stay out of his way and look in another direction, specifically where Sakura had been. Tobio, smartly deciding that arguing would only get them killed, left without another word, with an annoyed look on his face. Smiling to himself, Naruto followed Tobio, sneaking up on him for an easy win. Tobio caught on, however, and spun around, flinging a kunai at the fox. Naruto, his cover blown, started to bark, knowing that Ino would be able to understand him. "Sasuke and Tobio on my half of the forest." Tobio frowned. "What are you barking about?" he asked. Naruto changed back into a human. "Just telling my team your general location. Sasuke's as well." Tobio growled, and pulled out a kunai. Naruto pulled out one of his own with a small smirk on his face. "You know, I may not have passed the graduation exam, but I'm still a half-decent ninja. Get ready to have your ass kicked." "Well, you're smug," a voice said from behind. Naruto, startled, jumped away, finding Sasuke. The smirk on his face grew as he changed back into a fox. Tobio and Sasuke engaged. "I'll distract them. Find the flag, find the flag," he yelled out to his teammates. Ino's ear twitched. She got Gaara to transform so he could understand her. Naruto's distracting Sasuke and Tobio. "Come on, we have to find the flag." Gaara nodded and they raced off. Over with Naruto because he was being ganged up on. He was leading them around, making it look like he was running away in fear, because he was aware that he couldn't take them on, but also didn't want them to realize he was only buying time, at least until it was too late. Every time they caught up to him, he would use the substitution jutsu and hide for a minute to catch his breath. The two quickly caught on to his tricks. After only the third time of hiding, Sasuke used his great fireball to burn the surrounding area. Naruto barely got away. He whipped around to face his attacker. Was that really necessary? He yelled, forgetting that no one could understand him. In response, probably because he couldn't understand a word that came out of the fox's mouth, Sasuke merely smiled. Naruto was wholly confused as to why his enemy wasn't engaging him. And then he realized that Tobio was nowhere to be seen. He realized too late, as he was then knocked out from behind. Kakashi wordlessly retrieved the fox, briefly glancing at the remaining members of Team 7. Tobio had a goofy grin on his face, and Sasuke had a small smile, both proud of their small moment of teamwork. Uzumaki Naruto has been defeated by Uchiha Sasuke and Kyuubi Tobio. 2 members of each team remain. Kakashi's voice rang out. Gaara and Ino briefly paused. "Shit," Ino muttered. "We have to be quick. They're finally getting their act straight if they work together to defeat Naruto." Gaara nodded, and they raced through the forest, finally emerging at the lake, finding the flag lazily flap in the wind. Gaara transformed into a human and picked up the flag, turning around and racing to their base. Back with Team 7, Tobio had a bad feeling. Naruto was distracting us, he stated. A second passed, and then it clicked. "The flag," he yelled, swiftly turning on his heel and running to their base. Sasuke looked back at him, and then it clicked for him as well. "Shit," he swore, racing after his teammate. They both ran back to their base as fast as they could, now aware that Team Animal had almost won the game. Arriving back at the base, they were shocked, but not utterly surprised to find their flag gone. "Shit," Tobio growled, "we still have a chance," Sasuke said, running down the obvious trail that Team Animal made. Tobio quickly followed. 50 meters to go, and Team Animal will have won. But then they noticed Team 7 was gaining on them. Ino glanced at Gaara for a second and then stopped. Gaara got the message. Run, and don't stop until you've won the game. Team 7 caught up in no time. They weren't all that surprised to find Ino standing in their path, growling dangerously. Sasuke, go. I'll take care of her. Tobio offered. Sasuke nodded and attempted to leave. A kunai flying inches in front of his face stopped him. He turned to see Ino had somehow thrown the kunai that she had been holding in her mouth. Sasuke glanced at Tobio, silently telling him, go. Tobio nodded and ran as Sasuke engaged Ino in combat. Tobio could vaguely see Gaara's shape as he sprinted forward. Upon spying the enemy, he launched shuriken to impede the redhead's progress. Sadly for him, sand rose up and protected Gaara. Hey, that's no fair. Tobio yelled. Gaara briefly glanced back. It's not something I have control over. It has a mind of its own when it comes to danger like that, he called back. Shocked, Tobio yelled out. Kakashi-sensei, he can't do that, can he? Kakashi appeared, easily keeping pace with them. Sorry, but it's really no different than Sasuke's great fireball jutsu. With that out of the way, he disappeared. Fuck, Tobio yelled, rushing forward and grabbing onto the flag, attempting to pull it out of Gaara's grasp. Then Kakashi's voice rang out once again. Yamanaka Ino has been defeated by Uchiha Sasuke. Gaara froze at the news long enough for Tobio to steal his flag back. Determined to win, Gaara called forth his sand, wrapping it around the flag and pulling it away. Turning swiftly, Gaara ran. The sand soon returned the flag to his hands as Tobio yelled in annoyance, giving chase once again. Suddenly, from above, Sasuke yelled, "Fire release, great fireball technique." Gaara's head snapped upwards, but he made no attempt to dodge as his sand moved to protect him. The intense heat was nigh unbearable. While this did mean that neither of Team 7 could approach the smoldering cocoon that had formed around him, that also meant that heat had managed to sap him of his strength because he didn't have time to activate any of the sand's make yourself heat resistant type jutsus. Tobio and Sasuke looked at the sand that had formed around their enemy. Well, shit, what now? Tobio asked. Sasuke thought for a second. I didn't know that he had sand that could protect him like that. I'm not sure we can do anything until it cools down. Gaara then forced the sand to disappear, running again. Well, that's a stupid thing to do, Sasuke taunted, sprinting after his foe. As he neared Gaara, he was suddenly blindsided by the still smoldering sand. He can use it for offense? Sasuke yelled, enraged. Tobio then tried to chase after Gaara, but didn't quite catch him in time, as he then heard. And Gaara just barely brings in the victory for Team Animal. Fuck, Sasuke yelled in frustration. Everyone met at where Kakashi and those who had been defeated waited by the stumps. Kakashi smiled at the two teams. Good job, the both of you. Team Animal, I'm going to have to see if you can become a real team. Your teamwork is the best I've seen for a bunch of genins that have only been together for one day and hadn't even spoken to each other beforehand. We can't be a team, Naruto pointed out. I can't even pass the graduation test, and Gaara's from the sand. Kakashi held up a small camera. No one was sure when he got that. That's true, but I've caught the whole thing on video, and something tells me that the Hokage will agree. Naruto looked unsure, but didn't say anything else. Kakashi turned to Team 7. My team, at first, you weren't thinking, and just wandered off in your own directions. Sakura was knocked out of the game early as a result. However, when Naruto tried to distract you while his team retrieved your flag, you two worked together, and realized what was going on. You managed to take down Naruto, then Ino, and almost got Gaara, and the most injuries you got were a good smack or two on the head. Team 7 brightened up at this news. Kakashi smiled. And because you did so well on the latter half of the game, I think that I'll actually give you guys a shot. It took a second for the team to realize what that meant. You mean, we pass? Tobio yelled. Kakashi nodded, earning shouts of glee from Tobio and Sakura, and a small smile from Sasuke. Having forgotten why they had been playing that game to begin with, Team Animal completely forgot to rub it in Team 7's faces that they won and were the better team. And thus they left of their merry way feeling utterly proud of themselves for winning and being the reason Team 7 passed their test. They caught themselves a rabbit on the way back to the cave, and gleefully munched on it while discussing what Kakashi was planning on doing. He mentioned that he caught the whole thing on camera, Naruto said, his mouth full of dead animal. I don't know, I kind of like it out here. Besides, if we become a team, what will happen to your teams? Ino shrugged. They'd probably never get up off their lazy asses even if they did find someone to fill the missing spot. Really, if they don't make it past Genin, that's their own damn fault. After thinking, Gaara admitted, I think they'd be better off without me. They only see the crazy Shukaku side of me. Ah, don't worry about. Ino said. We still have a month before they can force this on us. Remember? Technically, this is a mission, after all. Naruto nodded. Right. I can't decide whether or not that would be a good idea though. Like I said, don't worry about it. They can't force it on you anyway, right? Naruto agreed, though it still lingered in the back of his mind as he curled up for sleep. Dawn of the 8th day. A week had passed since Team Animal beat Team 7 in Capture the Flag. The three had quickly gotten into a routine consisting of a day 1 foot and a day 2 feet based around which form Ino could assume that day. Day 1 was animal form day. They ate breakfast as soon as they could catch it, and then trained until lunch. After that was done, they would work on the basic tree climbing exercise that Kakashi showed them on the second day, which they figured was because he wanted to make sure that if they became a team, they wouldn't be horrible at basic chakra control. They worked on that exercise in their animal forms so they could use their front paws as well, which were otherwise rather unusable in most other exercises without some practice first. Day 2 was human form day. Up until after lunch, the process was largely the same. After lunch, they would instead work on the variation of the Suna's sand stride jutsu, which was a basic jutsu taught in their academy so the kids wouldn't drown in sand. All three of them were aware of Konoha's waterwalking ability, and because the fundamentals were the same, the two Leaf children made Gaara teach it to them. Gaara and Ino mastered the 2 chakra control exercises in less than 2 days. The only reason they continued to work on it was because they were constantly trying to fix Naruto's chakra control problem. When they figured out about his amazing lack of control, they quickly realized why he never could master the clone jutsu. And so, they made it their goal for the month to improve Naruto's control to the point where he could at least make 10 successful clones. They chose this goal because Naruto could actually successfully make 30 clones, no problem. The issue was making them in smaller quantities. Today was a day 1. As per usual, the three woke at the crack of dawn and walked outside, did some small stretches and then split up, as finding breakfast was faster when they split, which they figured out on the 3rd day, when they failed to find breakfast, and almost couldn't find any lunch. Naruto was the best hunter because he had Kurama with him, who helped out on occasion. As such, he caught breakfast first and let out a loud call to the others that he caught food. The three met up at their training grounds. Naruto was already there, dividing up the rabbit he acquired. He tossed the legs to Ino when she arrived, and provided Gaara with everything that he didn't want, because the sand genin didn't particularly care what he ate, so long as it was edible. Midway through eating, they heard rustling off to the side. They turned their attention to the spot with mild interest. Out of the bushes popped a black bear head. Alarmed at the larger animal's presence, the team jumped up. The bear stared at them curiously. A bear? Ino asked. I didn't know we had bears in this forest, Naruto said, assuming a defensive stance. Gaara studied the beast for a second before commenting. It's young. It almost looks lost. My guess is that it just came here in search of a decent home. Okay, so what do we do? Ino asked. More than likely, it's going to try and steal our food, Gaara said, being interrupted before he could explain the options. I'm not going to take that lying down, Naruto growled. You didn't let me finish, Gaara said, irritated. I don't know a lot about bears, but I do know there is a reason they're at the top of the food chain. We should just leave until it's gone. No way. Naruto snarled. You said it's young. We can take it. Chasing it away will be simple. Naruto, it's stupid. Gaara growled. You're going to get killed. I'm not going to put up with this stupid beast stealing our food for the rest of the month, Naruto said. It's best if we show it who is boss now. Back out if you want. Naruto assumed an attack stance. The bear realized this and growled at him, as though it was telling him to back off or suffer for it. Naruto didn't move. We can't just leave him there, Ino said, watching Naruto stare at the bear. He's stupid enough to get into a fight with a bear. He should suffer the consequences, Gaara said, not budging. Gaara, Ino cried. You've got to be kidding me. He's our friend, and that means we can't just let him get hurt, no matter how much he deserves it. Gaara let out a sigh and nodded, changing into a human so he could utilize his sand, as for some odd reason, his sand disappears in his animal form. None of them were sure where it went, not even Shukaku, who was aware of the sand's position at all times. Fine, he muttered. Naruto glanced at them, a smile growing on his face as he changed form. Cool, now let's wreck some shit up. Gaara rolled his eyes at the Fox Boy's enthusiasm. I'm not sure I would have worded it like that, but sure, why not? Ino laughed at them, happy that they were getting along. The bear was fed up with watching the three, and rushed forward to attack. The three swiftly dodged, and then Naruto made 100 clones pop into existence. Though they weren't solid, it was enough to make the bear think it was surrounded. Apparently, it took this as a challenge, though, and it rushed for the first Naruto that stood in front of him. It was very surprised to find that its paw never made contact with its target, though, causing it to stumble. The real Naruto took the opportunity and jumped on its back. The bear let out a yelp and smashed its back into a nearby tree to get rid of the unwanted passenger. Naruto was squashed, leaving him dazed, and undoing the clone jutsu. The extra challengers gone, and one of its opponents dazed, the bear turned to Gaara and Ino, who stared at it. Well, this was a stupid idea, Gaara said. Ino let out a small yip in response, which he knew meant that she wholly agreed. The bear charged. Gaara simply brought up his sand to defend them. The bear was understandably confused at this, and walked around the dome to see what it was. In that time, Naruto got back up and ran up the tree that he had been smashed against. He brought out his training kunai and watched the bear carefully. It was poking at the sand curiously. He smiled and launched forward, landing on the bear's back again, stabbing it in the shoulder with his kunai. The bear let out a pained cry and started running around wildly. Naruto, not wanting to fall off, clung to the bear's fur for dear life. After a minute, the bear stopped, turning its head to glare at Naruto. Naruto let out a nervous chuckle and removed the kunai from its shoulder, backflipping off its back and running to cower behind Gaara as the bear let out a cry that let him know it was furious, outraged, and sick with anger. Gaara let out a long sigh as the bear started to pound away at his sand trying to get to Naruto. Good job, he said sarcastically. I'm sorry, Naruto whined. Please save me. Gaara chuckled and sent some of his excess sand to restrain the bear. When he was sure it couldn't move, he let the rest of his sand fall, watching as Naruto poked and prodded the bear, laughing. The bear was understandably unhappy. He almost chomped Naruto's hand off twice. Okay, what do we do now? Naruto asked when he was done playing with the poor animal. The fastest and least chakra-consuming way would be to let Ino take it over and lead it away, Gaara said, turning to said female. Ino nodded and changed form, as she couldn't use the mind transfer without hands. Gaara struggled to keep the bear under control while they waited for her to regain enough chakra to use her jutsu. Eventually, Naruto grew annoyed. So he formed a ball of raw chakra in his hands and shoved it down her throat in an attempt to speed up the process. The result was a very pissed-off Ino that was choking slightly while her body rejected the foreign substance. What the hell was that? She growled when she was done choking. I wanted to speed up the process, Naruto shrugged. So you shoved a blob of raw chakra down my throat? She yelled. Yep, Naruto responded, not feeling the least bit guilty. Actually, it appears to be working, Gaara said, causing the two to look at him in confusion. Your body rejects it, but Shukaku says that Naruto's chakra is actually slowly melding with yours. You should be able to use it, and probably won't end up wasting any of your own. Well, that's oddly convenient, Ino sighed. Rounding on Naruto, she yelled, don't do that again, though. Naruto laughed and raised his hands. Don't worry, I won't do it without your permission again. Good, she grumbled. 5 minutes later, Ino was walking through the forest, wondering where she should drop the bear off. It was then that she saw an old cave by a river. Perfect, she thought to herself. Hey bear, she called out to the bear's consciousness. What? It asked unhappily. I'm going to drop you off here. If you come after us again, though, you're most definitely going to get your ass kicked, she told it. Great, it grumbled. Just be glad you're alive, she told it before leaving. All alone, the bear let out a small sigh. Ino opened her eyes and looked at the boys. Gaara was sitting on a tree branch, yelling at Naruto, who was halfway up the tree, only using his hands and chakra to keep it attached to the bark, to pull himself up while you wind. Come on, build that upper body strength. Gaara yelled with a playful tone. Why the hell aren't you doing this? You're the least physically able of all of us. Naruto yelled. I'll do it once you make it to the branch I'm sitting on, Gaara replied. Alright, incentive? Naruto yelled, moving a lot quicker. Gaara, realizing what he just did, cursed and tried to bang his head on the tree. His sand stopped him, much to his dismay. Ino laughed at them and joined Gaara on the branch. Why are you doing this? Because I dared him, Gaara replied. And now it's turned on me. Naruto made it to branch seconds later. Alright, your turn, he told Gaara tauntingly. Gaara groaned before jumped to the base of the tree. Remember that you brought this on yourself. Naruto yelled down at him with a snicker. 10 minutes passed, and Gaara finally made it up. Good job, Naruto praised mockingly. Shut up, Gaara growled. Alright, Ino, it's your turn, Naruto turned to her. What? She asked. Naruto raised an eyebrow, silently telling her to do it. With a sigh, she proceeded to perform the new exercise. When that was finally over, Naruto left to find lunch. Once he was gone, Ino turned to Gaara. Why did you dare him? Gaara shrugged. Wanted to see if he would. Also, I'm generally not involved in dares, but I don't remember if you can be told to do that same thing by the person you dared. Last I checked, no, they can't do that. Why didn't you point that out earlier, or better yet, not tell him you were going to do it? With that thought in mind, Gaara attempted to bang his head on the tree again, and, once again, his sand prevented him. Giving up, he said, at least it's something new for us to work on. Perfect, Ino groaned. After Naruto returned and they ate, Naruto insisted they tried the exercise again, saying he was going to get there in 5 minutes next, as opposed to the 5 minutes and 30 seconds that it took him last time. Deciding it best to just go along with Fox Boy's antics, they watched as Naruto attempted to haul himself up the tree. When he was done, Gaara stated his time. 5 minutes, he said. Naruto started yelling happily. And another 60 seconds. I'm sure you can do the math. Naruto stopped for a second and thought. 6 minutes? He yelled, outraged. How the fuck did I do worse? You had incentive the first time, Ino answered. Naruto grumbled something and jumped back down, somehow not harming himself from the impact, starting the process over. God, I envy his stamina, Ino and Gaara thought at the same time, watching as he dragged himself up the tree again. How the hell does he do that? Gaara asked. What, never run out of energy and drag himself up a tree with only his hands and chakra twice 6 minutes each? I'm not quite sure, Ino answered. Once again, Naruto jumped up onto the branch. What's my time? He asked. 5 minutes, Naruto stared at Gaara, waiting for the seconds. In 70 seconds. 10 seconds more. How? Naruto asked, incredulous. Have you ever hit your limit? Ever? Gaara asked. What limit? Naruto questioned. Your stamina. Gaara yelled, frustrated. Have you ever thought that you've hit the limit of your stamina? No, Naruto replied. Though, now that you mention it, I am a little tired. Gaara's eye twitched and he looked like he wanted to smack Naruto around, but refrained from the action. Good, he groaned. Take a rest then. Naruto nodded and sat down on the branch, prodding Gaara until he did something to amuse him. Finally, getting annoyed, Gaara threatened to strangle him, wrapping his sand around the poor boy's neck. Naruto promptly shut up, but was at it again in a couple of minutes. Thus, Gaara ended up using his sand to create a version of the tongue-cut sparrow story. Naruto wasn't amused, though, and he tuned out Gaara's narrator voice, as well as his horrible voice acting for the woman and sparrow family. Though Naruto refused to listen, Ino found it rather amusing to watch, so Gaara continued. When he was done, she commented, I didn't know you knew that story. Gaara shrugged. My uncle told me it before he died, he replied. I'm surprised that I remember it. I'm surprised you were able to create a highly detailed sand version of a sparrow, Ino said, approaching the now still figure made of sand. Gaara smiled and brought it to life, making it fly around the area and do other bird-related things. Ino smiled as she watched. Before he could make the creature dive for a worm, as he had intended, there was a thunk and some swearing, making him lose his concentration. The sand fell, landing as a heap on the ground. Irritated, Gaara turned to Naruto, who apparently was attempting to climb the tree with only his hands again. Small blots of red chakra were leaking out alongside his own chakra as he dragged himself up. Is that red chakra? Ino asked, trying to get a good look at it. I think so, Gaara answered. Naruto, he called to the boy. Naruto glanced at them. You're leaking red chakra. I don't think that's normal. Confused, Naruto glanced at his hands, finding that the blue aura surrounding them had red blobs dotted around. Yeah, I don't think that's normal, Naruto said, surprised. He dropped down. Is it Kurama? Ino asked. I don't know, Naruto answered. Give me a second. Naruto entered his mind, and asked Kurama, hey, what's up with that red chakra? Unbelievably, you were somehow running out of chakra. So you were drawing on mine to keep yourself on the tree, the fox answered. But that exercise doesn't require that much. What have you been doing? I thought you knew, Naruto replied. I couldn't sleep last night, so I was training. I can make a minimum of 8 clones now. Good for you, Kit, Kurama deadpanned. Don't do that again, though. I don't think your body can handle my chakra. I've lived with it around my whole life. It can't be that bad, Naruto said. Kurama shook his head. I'll show you what happens if you use it for 5 minutes then. Go tell the others. Naruto returned, and told Ino and Gaara, it was Kurama's chakra. He's going to show me what using it for 5 minutes will do to me. Was entering your mindscape necessary? Gaara asked. I wish I had some ink, so I could have written all over your face in the time that you were unresponsive. Naruto scowled at Gaara. Backing away, he yelled, hit it, Kurama. Kurama complied, saying, I'm only giving you a single tail, and I'm going to pull it away if you start destroying anything. Naruto nodded as the chakra leaked out from the seal. His blue eyes turned into Kurama's blood-red ones, and he dropped down to all fours. Hey Gaara, give me something to fight, Naruto requested, finding that Gaara and Ino had moved to the safety of a nearby tree branch. Gaara obeyed, creating a mini Shukaku, which the one tail then jumped into against Gaara's wishes. Realizing that Shukaku now had his own body, Gaara yelled, Shukaku just took over the sand. Naruto sighed and yelled, keep that thing on a mental leash, will you? And thus, a battle of epic proportions began. Next time, actually. Shukaku laughed evilly. So, you think you can stop me, Fox? I can, and I will, Naruto replied. Gaara, can't you recall your sand or something? Well, technically, it's his sand, Gaara informed him. Then why don't you change form and cause the sand to disappear like it normally does? Naruto asked. Gaara thought for a second and then transformed. To his horror, Shukaku's sand body didn't budge. Gaara laughed nervously as he returned to his human form. I don't think that it works if the sand isn't under my control. Naruto growled in annoyance and turned to Shukaku. Alright, you damn raccoon. This is your last chance to return to your seal before I kick your ass. Shukaku smirked. Aren't you confident? Let me show you what real power is. With that, he gathered the rest of Gaara's sand, using it to increase his size to almost double Naruto's normal height. I think we're going to need another tail, Naruto commented, getting nervous. You're fine for now, Kit, Kurama told him. If shit hits the fan, I'll give you more power. Let's just hope it doesn't, Naruto replied, turning his full attention to his opponent. Shukaku started the battle by taking a deep breath. Move, Kit, Kurama yelled. Naruto obeyed and started to run to the left as Shukaku yelled, wind-style drilling air bullets. He pounded his stomach and somehow forced a giant airball out of his mouth. Naruto couldn't help but let out a scream and put a burst of speed into his run. The bullet missed, but Naruto was left suddenly regretting requesting a fight. Attack, Kit. You can't win sitting there. Kurama told him. Right, I know that, Naruto said. He shot forward, appearing in front of the raccoon spirit in a matter of seconds. He slashed, but was shocked to find that the sand slipped through his hand. He didn't get enough time for a surprised look to register on his face before he was batted away like an annoying fly. Naruto smacked into a tree. Letting out a groan, he asked, Alright, what now? A strong jutsu might be able to blow away his body long enough for Gaara to suppress him, Kurama commented. But I don't know any decent jutsu. Naruto yelled. I have some crappy clones and transformations. That's all. And can Gaara even suppress him? Naruto looked to Shukaku, who was preparing another drilling wind bullet. With a frightened shriek, he got up and started to run again. I don't know, why don't you ask him? Kurama told him as Shukaku fired, almost causing Naruto to not hear half of what was said. "Oh, right," Naruto let out a small laugh. Calling out to Gaara, he asked, "If I can blow apart the sand body, can you stop Shukaku?" Gaara nodded, to which Naruto smirked. "Then leave it to me to blow him up." Shukaku was getting annoyed at Naruto's evading. "Stay still so I kill you," he yelled. "I would rather not," Naruto called back. Speaking to Kurama, he asked, "Alright, think you can help me out?" "Like I said, I don't have a jutsu that would do the job." Kurama grunted. "I could, but I fear what might happen. I don't know what would happen if you tried to use the only move I believe would deal with him." "I can handle it, don't worry," Naruto assured him. "Very well," Kurama said. "I'll handle forming the chakra and the like. I just need some time. I was last stuck in the fourth Hokage's wife, you know, and so I heard a good deal about how he was working on a version of the tailed beast ball that was less likely to destroy a whole village in 2 seconds. I think that I could form an incomplete version of his jutsu for you." Naruto smiled. "Cool, you need to teach me that sometime." Kurama laughed. "Yes, well, I don't know how well that would end, but sure, who's it going to kill?" "A lot of people, but that's beside the point," Naruto commented. "Anyway, how long will it take for you to form it?" "A couple minutes. Get the others to distract him for us." Naruto nodded and jumped up to the tree where they were hiding. Whispering to them so Shukaku wouldn't catch on until it was too late, he said, "I need you guys to distract him for me. Kurama needs some time to form a jutsu for me that can blow him away, literally." The two nodded and jumped down while Naruto stayed on the tree and let Kurama control the chakra in his arm. Naruto closed his eyes and tried to block out the sounds of the nearby fighting. He heard Shukaku yelled, "So, that stupid fox decided to run away, huh? Not like I expected better of him." This particular comment made Naruto's eye twitch, but he refrained from attacking just yet. A minute passed, and Kurama said, "Alright kid, this is the best I can do. Now hurry up. Holding it together for you is more difficult than I expected. I don't know how long I can keep it together, especially if you start waving your arms around." Naruto opened his eyes and looked at his hand. Floating there was a small purple sphere that sometimes formed into a non-sphere shape, probably because it was a lot of chakra being poorly packed together. He smiled and said, "Oh, you are so teaching me this later." Jumping back into the battle, Naruto found that his teammates had gotten their asses kicked, with both of them already knocked out, and Shukaku was about to kill Gaara so he could be free of his seal. Naruto growled angrily and dashed forward, yelling, "You might want to pay attention to me, you stupid lump of dirt." Shukaku turned and nonchalantly said, "Dirt is different than sand, you know." He easily batted Naruto away before he could attack. Spying the sphere he held, the raccoon frowned. "What do you have there, little fox? It looks like my sibling has attempted to create a slightly less destructive version of our tailed beast balls for you. How cute, but it won't work." He sent sand flying at the boy. Naruto screamed and raised his arms up to guard, squeezing his eyes closed. Kurama stopped the attack by providing another tail to Naruto's shroud and releasing a burst of power. Naruto opened his eyes slowly and inspected the new tail. "Thanks, Kurama. You can thank me when Shukaku is back where he belongs," Kurama told him. "Yeah, sure," Naruto said, standing and looking down at the orb that was surprisingly still intact. "I thought you said it was difficult to keep together." "Yes, but effectively I'm a giant chakra monster. It's tough, indeed, but to me, impossible is really maybe about medium difficulty." "Then what's actually hard for you?" Naruto asked as he started moving again because Shukaku was preparing more air bullets. I'd say battling 5 or more of my siblings at once." Kurama guessed. Naruto chuckled as he focused on Shukaku again, who was releasing the air bullets. To his surprise, the raccoon wasn't aiming at him, but rather, at Gaara. Naruto reacted quickly, jumping in the way of the attack for his friend. The force of the attack sent him flying right through a tree, which almost fell over on him as a result. Luckily, he was able to roll out of the way in time to avoid being squashed. Unfortunately, this maneuver caused the incomplete mini-tailed beast ball variant to come into contact with the ground, causing the contained chakra to explode, which threw Naruto back into the air. Poor Naruto felt thoroughly beaten up as he landed painfully on the ground. "Can I call it quits for now?" he asked, halfway to the point of unconsciousness. "No, you dumbass," Kurama yelled. "Wake up and save Raccoon Boy. We cannot have him dead." The mention of Gaara jolted Naruto awake. He jumped to his feet and ran forward, just in time to punch Shukaku in the face to get him away from his Jinchuriki. Shukaku stumbled backwards, mostly out of surprise, considering Sand couldn't be wounded. "How are you still alive?" he demanded to know. "I have no idea," Naruto proclaimed proudly. "Why do you sound proud of that fact?" Kurama asked with a sigh. "Die!" Shukaku yelled angrily, attempting to punch the foxboy. "No!" Naruto yelled, also attempting a punch. Predictably, Naruto lost that fight, his hand once again slipping right through the sand, and was once again sent flying. "Kit, I think you've lost one too many brain cells by this point," Kurama sighed. "Yes, I have," Naruto yelled, almost sounding happy of the fact. Kurama groaned upon hearing this. "Well, you're fucked. Tell your parents I said, hi, in the afterlife for me, okay Kit?" "Sure," Naruto agreed. Shukaku looked to Naruto, and then to Gaara. "I wonder which I should murder first," he muttered to himself. "Preferably, neither," Ino told him. Shukaku tilted his head towards her. "You're a dumbass, you know that? You just announced that you were alive for me to kill you." "Maybe," Ino shrugged. "Not that it matters much. I may not have a lot of chakra left, but I can keep you from killing anyone until you're back in Gaara." "You're annoying," Shukaku told her. "Thank you," Ino replied sarcastically. Looking at Naruto, she yelled, "Hey, get moving, lazy ass." Naruto, despite still on the verge of being brain dead from being knocked around, looked to her and nodded, mouthing, "Buy me some time, and wake Gaara." Ino nodded and turned to Shukaku, who was laughing his head off. His laughter quickly died down, and he said, "You are so dead." Taking a deep breath, he released more air bullets. With some difficulty, they were dodged. Ino ran over to Gaara, who was slowly waking. "Get up," she yelled at him. "Why would I do that?" he asked. "I'm comfy here. Do you want to die?" she asked. Gaara nodded. "Well, too bad." With that, she slapped him a couple times and dragged him to his feet. Awake now, Gaara looked to Shukaku. "God damn it, I was hoping that was just a dream." "Well, it isn't. Now then, Naruto apparently has another brilliant plan, so we're stuck distracting him again. This time it better work," Gaara grumbled before dodging an attack. Back with Naruto, he was running towards the village, meaning he was running from the fight. "Your teammates are going to kill you if they find out about this, Kit," Kurama told him. I know, Naruto muttered. "But we can't take that guy down. He's earned the title of Tailed Beast, which, if you remember, being one yourself, basically means, nigh undefeatable. So what's your plan, Kit? Even if the whole village is there, you might not be able to stop him long enough for Gaara to seal him away." "I know, but it's our best option," Naruto replied, stopping before the gates, looking at the guards, who were staring at him, probably because of the chakra cloak around him. "I need your help," he yelled to them. "The monster in Gaara has taken control of his sand and made itself a body out of it. I can't stop it long enough for Gaara to seal it back up." The guards looked at each other, then back at Naruto. They guessed he was serious from the look on his face, so one said, "I think one of the Sannin is in town getting supplies or something. Maybe he's still here." The other guard nodded at the idea, and the first jumped away in search. Turning back to Naruto, the second guard asked, "What happened?" "The Kyuubi was showing me this chakra cloak, and I wanted something to fight." Gaara made a sand Shukaku, and then the real one somehow jumped into the sand, and now he's beating us up, Naruto explained to the dumbfounded guard. The guard, confused, couldn't come up with a reply. He was saved from having to as his teammate returned with a white-haired man who looked to be in his 50s. "Oh, so you're the guy who's gotten himself in a boatload of shit, huh?" the man asked, eyeing Naruto's chakra cloak. Naruto eyed the man. "Can you really stop a tailed beast?" he asked, not expecting a lot. "I could make it so yours can't give you any more of its chakra," the old man informed him. "I'd love to see you try," Naruto growled. "As much as I want to, don't you have an issue you need to deal with?" the man asked. "Crap," Naruto yelled, turning and running into the forest, the man following, somehow keeping up with the speed that Naruto possessed with Kurama's chakra. The two returned to the battle. Shockingly, with the time that Naruto took to get the odd man, his friends were not yet dead. "Well, this is quite the pickle, isn't it?" The old man asked in an uncaring manner, as though he wasn't worried that two children were about to get mangled by a sand demon. Don't just stand there, Naruto yelled. Kill it. Yeah, the old man replied nonchalantly. In his hand, he formed a sphere similar to what Kurama had made for Naruto. He jumped into battle and struck Shukaku before he knew what hit him. The sand was blasted apart, but quickly began to reform. Gaara and Ino stood there, dumbstruck by the man's appearance, until Naruto yelled, "Seal Shukaku back up Gaara." Gaara jolted out of his stupor and proceeded to seal the demon back up. The battle over, the three collapsed, Naruto and Gaara barely conscious. Ino just fainted, seemingly simply because she was relieved that Shukaku was contained again. Kurama retracted his chakra, depriving Naruto of just about everything keeping him up at that point. You have a pathetic seal, you know that? The old man that helped them commented. Me or him? Naruto asked. Both of you, he replied. Raccoon, I don't know how he did it, but he jumped out of your seal into your sand. I'm rather shocked that he doesn't do that more often. Or does he? Surprisingly, that's the first time, Gaara told him. The man nodded in understanding and turned to Naruto. Fox, you let two tails slip out. Do you know how dangerous that is? Kurama's not a bad guy, Naruto informed him. Sure, everyone hates me because of him, but he's probably the only reason I'm still alive right now. It's not like I'm smart enough to pass the graduation test. The old man stared at them. What are you guys doing out here, anyway? Well, you see, Naruto said, about to launch into a story. It was then that his infinite stamina finally ran out, and he fainted. The old man stared at the three unconscious teens, Gaara having fainted while Naruto was talking, and sighed before moving to take them back to the village.
That's all for now. If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comments.